Hi everyone and welcome to my channel Fillers and Filters. So this channel is devoted to helping students, professionals, and anyone who would want to improve their linguistic skills. So when the pandemic blew up and the universities were forced to explore new ways on how they can deliver and impart knowledge to their students, I actually thought of trying to pitch in what I can do, and I have thought of making videos, streamlining my videos or my content with SHED curriculum. So just a quick background, I actually taught at the State University for 10 years. So if you have watched my previous videos, you would know that I'm an English teacher or English instructor. And before I left the university in 2018, I actually had the opportunity to teach Purposive Communication to college freshmen. With this new setup in education, I know that you are having a difficult time adjusting, and in fact, your teachers are also having a hard time navigating uncharted territory. So this is something that's also really new to them because they've been used to, face-to-face interaction or face-to-face discussion. And I'm also aware that some of your teachers or most of your teachers are already overwhelmed with the paperwork that they have to do with classroom, quote unquote, with virtual classroom management and the like. Not to mention, of course, in state universities where the class size is relatively larger. And this is something new to every one of us. So by discussing topics in Purposive Communication, hopefully I can help in imparting knowledge to you all. So in case you have questions later on regarding the topic, or in case you have a topic that you want me to discuss, feel free to pitch them in or jot them down in the comment section below, and I will try my best to help you out. Purposive communication. Why do you think did the Commission on Higher Education include purposive communication as part of your curriculum? Well, communication is integral in our daily lives. So communicating is something that we do on a daily basis. Well, the term purposive actually entails purpose. So that somehow it entails that depending on our purpose, the way we communicate may actually differ. Why is it important for us to develop our communication skills? When we become professionals, when we embark on the new chapter of our lives and we become part of the working force of the country, being effective communicators would actually help. Now, you might tell me that you don't really need to hone your communication skills or your English skills, but I'm telling you that regardless of the field that you are in, communication will definitely be important. Once you become professionals, regardless of the field that you are in, you might be asked to make reports or do oral presentations or even negotiate with clients. And on a daily basis, definitely you also will be asked to communicate with your colleagues, either in oral or written forms. So you might need to send emails or you might need to write letters. So that definitely a course in purposive communication can help you become a more efficient and more productive part of the labor force. There have been various definitions of communication offered by communications theorists and scholars. But for this purpose, we will be adopting the definition by Julia Wood, who is a humanities professor. So according to her, communication is a process in which people interact with and through symbols to create meanings and interpretations. Now, this particular definition actually coincides with the various definitions that we can find in other references. In this definition presented by Wood, there are 4 concepts that she highlighted, and these 4 concepts are actually very similar to the definitions by scholars and theorists. So these include, number one, that communication is a process, and then number two, that communication is systematic, and it involves symbols to create, number four, meanings. So first, let's talk about communication as a process. So that when we say communication is a process, it involves the process or the processes of transmitting or sending message and the process of receiving message. So some more simplistic definitions of communication would say that communication is a meaning-making process. So that it is a process. That means it starts and it could possibly end. So that means it's an ongoing cycle. But when does a communication process start and when it will end, it's something that's very hard to determine. Because what you would notice that our present interaction, for instance, while you are watching my video, may be influenced by interactions that we've already had in the past. So let's say, for instance, I'm communicating with you now, but if you have watched my videos, our communication or the process of communication between us can actually be affected by our previous interactions. In the same way that our interaction right now may actually influence future events. So it is a continuous process where the present is affected by the past and the present can actually influence the future. And another important concept is the idea that communication is systematic. So that when we say systematic, it would involve different units or different elements, and that these elements are actually interrelated. So for us to be able to get the meaning of a statement or an utterance in a communication process, definitely we need to factor in the different elements of communication, which we will be discussing more later. So that, for instance, we'll have to include who are the people involved in the communication process, where did it happen, what channel or what mode of communication was used, what was the message, what was the feedback, and the like. Also in this definition by Wood is the idea of symbols. So that when we say symbols, meanings are formed by using symbols. So that, say for instance, the most common symbol that we use in communicating would be language. But also, symbols may come in the form of nonverbal communication. So that, for instance, shrugging your shoulders or rolling your eyes can actually have meanings. Or in fact, even the way we dress and the way we do things can communicate meanings. So these are the symbols that we use in communicating. And lastly, communication is about meanings. As we have said earlier, communication is the process of exchanging meanings. And these meanings are attached to the messages that we send to one another. Now, we make meanings and we decode meanings through communication. So now let's move on to the different elements of communication. And again, depending on your reference, the terms used in the elements of communication may actually vary. So first element would be people. So that when we say people, this refers to the people who are involved in the communication process. In some books, they would refer to these as the sender, the one who sends the message, and the receiver, the one who receives the message. But what we would note, of course, is that communication is a process. And it is a continuous process where there is role reversal. So that at one point in the communication process, I will be the sender who sends out a message to you. But once you give me your feedback, you become the sender and I will become the receiver. So that what you would note in the communication process is that there is role reversal or turn taking. So that whoever is the sender first might become the receiver next, and whoever is the receiver might also become the sender. So that, for instance, in our case here, I am sending you a message through this video. And once you give your comments, for instance, in the comment section later on, you will become the sender and I will become the receiver. So it's a continuous process of giving and receiving messages. So that's the first element in communication. The people who are involved in the process. The next element is what we call the message. So that when we say message, what is the idea, the information, the insight that the persons wish to convey or the persons wish to exchange with one another. So that's the message. And again, it may come in the form of verbal or non-verbal messages. So remember earlier, I have told you that communication is a process where there is role reversal. So that when the receiver becomes the sender, the message that he gives is called the feedback. So our third element is called feedback. So when we say feedback, this refers to the response of the other person who receives the message. So suppose the sender sends a message to the receiver can now give a feedback. So again, in the same manner that the message may come in the form of verbal or non-verbal cues, the feedback may also come in the form of verbal or non-verbal cues. So say for instance, I'm lecturing in front of a class, like a physical class, and the students are nodding or the students are yawning. Those are actually feedback. So from their reactions, I can actually deduce some things. The persons or the students who are nodding, that means perhaps they are understanding or they are agreeing to what I'm saying. Or, the students who are yawning may find that my lecture is actually boring. So that feedback would be the response of the receiver to the message that the sender is conveying. Now, the fourth element of communication is what we call the channel. So when we say channel, yes, YouTube channel, that means the media through which we send our message. So it may come in the form of different media. So for instance, are we sending our message face-to-face? Are we sending it via SMS? Are we sending it via digital technology? Are we sending it via social media or mass media and so on and so forth? So that would be the channel. So how do we send the message? That would be channel. And the next would be noise. So another element in communication is noise. Now this refers to, well, you can say the literal noise that's happening while the interaction is ongoing. It could be perhaps while I'm filming my video, it could be the noise coming from my kids who are shouting, or it could be the noise coming from the fan, or perhaps while you are viewing this on YouTube, it could be the internet signal that's really crappy. So these barriers in communication are called noise. So it could mean the physical noise, it could mean the internet signal, or it could mean bad audio quality and the like. And of course, we also have what we call context. Whenever I teach a communication process, I would emphasize that context, knowing the context, is very crucial. So that when we say context, this refers to the various situations within which the communication process took place. So let's say, for instance, the utterance, "I hate you," could mean different things depending on the context. Just by changing one aspect of the context, it could already change the meaning. If I'll be saying, "I hate you," depending on the tone of my voice, depending on the person I'm talking to, depending on where we are, depending on what cultural or psychological backgrounds do we have, these could mean different things. And lastly, we have the element of effect. So that when we say effect, this would refer to how the communication process has influenced the participant. So that, say for instance, we have exchanged ideas. I have shared with you my opinion on something. What would you do after? That would be the effect. For instance, I have shared with you that taking vitamin C and vitamin D regularly can help boost your immune system so that you can avoid contracting the virus or the coronavirus. Whatever will be your response to that, for instance, in terms of how will you act on that information, would be the effect. Are you going to ignore it, or are you going to start taking your vitamins? That would be the effect. So hopefully you have understood the concepts better with this video. And if you happen to have questions or clarifications, don't hesitate to comment them on the comment section below. And also, don't forget to like this video if it has helped you in one way or another, and subscribe to my channel and click that notification bell so that you will be notified once the content becomes available. So thanks again for watching. Au revoir!